I am 82 years old, and before my time runs out, I need to warn you about something that is stealing the peace from your final chapters. Everyone around you, your children, your doctors, your well-meaning neighbors, they are lying to you. Not with malice, mind you, but with ignorance. They are telling you that your desire to be alone is a symptom, a red flag, a warning sign of depression, isolation, decline. They are wrong. My name is Harold Whitman, and I spent 4 decades of my life believing that same lie. 4 decades forcing myself into social gatherings that drained me like a punctured tire. 4 decades feeling broken because I did not want what everyone told me I should want. Coffees with acquaintances who barely remembered my name. Senior center bingo games that made my teeth ache with their hollow cheerfulness. Family dinners where I sat like a museum piece, spoken to but not heard, surrounded but utterly alone. And then 3 years ago I stopped. I stopped pretending. I stopped apologizing. I stopped answering my daughter Sarah's phone calls with excuses about why I could not attend another barbecue, another birthday party, another weekend gathering designed to prove to herself that her father was not giving up. I told her something that made her cry. Something that she did not understand then, and I am not sure she fully understands now. I told her that I was more alive in my silence than I had been in years of noise. You can click away from this video right now, my friend. You can go back to forcing yourself to be the person everyone expects you to be. But if you do, I promise you this, you will reach the end of your road, as I am reaching mine, and you will mourn the hours you spent performing your own life instead of living it. You will count the Sunday afternoons you gave away to obligation when you could have spent them in the only companionship that never demands you be anything other than what you are. Your own. Let me take you back to November of 2019. A Thursday afternoon, I remember, because the light was coming through my kitchen window in that particular slanted way it does in late autumn. Everything gold and amber and dying beautiful. My wife Catherine had been gone for 8 months. The house still smelled like her, lavender hand soap, that specific brand of tea she drank, Earl Grey with too much sugar. I was sitting at the kitchen table, just sitting, watching dust particles float in the sunlight, not thinking about anything in particular, just being. And then Sarah called. "Dad," she said, and I could already hear the concern in her voice, that particular pitch of worry that adult children develop when their parents become their new project. "Dad, I am worried about you. You have not left the house in 3 days. That is not healthy. You need to get out, see people. I have signed you up for a painting class at the community center. Tuesdays and Thursdays. It starts next week." I remember looking at my hands. These hands, with their age spots and their slight tremor. I was holding a cup of coffee that had gone cold. "I do not want to paint," I said. "It is not about painting, Dad, it is about being around other people. Socialization." The doctor said. "The doctor does not live in my body, Sarah." There was a long silence. "You are scaring me," she finally said. "Mom would not want you to just withdraw like this." And there it was, the weapon, the guilt. Your dead spouse would want you to be different than you are. Your isolation is a betrayal of their memory. Your need for solitude is evidence of your failure to cope, to heal, to be normal. I went to that painting class, young one. I went because I loved my daughter and did not want to be the source of her fear. I sat in a bright room with fluorescent lights that hummed like angry insects and 11 other people who were all performing the same theater of wellness. We painted bowls of fruit. We made small talk about grandchildren and the weather and medications for arthritis. And every single second, I felt like I was drowning. It took me 60 years to realize what should have been obvious from the beginning. The world does not understand the difference between loneliness and solitude. Between isolation that hollows you out and aloneness that fills you back up. They see an elderly person sitting quietly and they see a problem to be solved. Never a human being who has finally earned the right to exist without an audience. Listen to me carefully, because this is the thing they will never tell you at the senior center or in the doctor's office or in those glossy pamphlets about healthy aging. Your brain is different now than it was at 40. Your nervous system is different. Your soul, if you believe in such things, and I do, your soul has different needs at 70, at 80, than it did when you were building a career and raising children and playing the elaborate game of social survival. When your children tell you that you need to get out more, what they are really saying is, your quietness makes me uncomfortable. Your contentment without constant activity contradicts everything I have been taught about what a full life looks like. You are not performing aging the way the culture says you should, with desperate cheerfulness, with relentless busyness, with the pretense that you are still 35 inside. When your doctor suggests you are at risk for isolation, what they are really measuring is your conformity to a social model designed for younger nervous systems. They are not asking, do you feel peaceful? Do you wake up without dread? Do you spend your hours in ways that feel true? They are checking boxes. Social engagement insufficient. Recommended intervention force more contact. When your friends from church or the old neighborhood say, "We never see you anymore," with that edge of accusation in their voice, what they are really telling you is your absence reflects poorly on our gathering. We need your attendance to validate our choices. Your departure is a mirror we do not want to look into. They will clip your wings and call it keeping you safe. They will pathologize your peace and call it concern. They will drag you into the noise and call it love. This is the great lie of late life caregiving. The assumption that an elderly person who wants solitude is a problem to be fixed rather than a human being who has finally figured out what makes them whole. And you, my friend, if you are feeling guilty right now for canceling plans, for letting the phone ring, for preferring your own company to the exhausting performance of being who they need you to be, you are falling for it right now. When you are lying in bed at 90, if you are granted that much time, you will not remember the names of the people at the painting class you forced yourself to attend. You will not treasure the memory of the family gatherings where you smiled until your face ached and counted the minutes until you could leave. You will remember the quiet mornings, the books you read in the afternoon light, the thoughts you were finally free to think all the way through without interruption. The breaking point came when I was 79 years old. It was Christmas Eve. Sarah had been planning for weeks. She always does. Everything perfect, everything controlled. The whole family was going to be there. Her 2 boys, now in their 20s with girlfriends I could barely distinguish from one another. Her husband Mark, good man, boring as flour. Catherine's sister Dorothy and her husband Frank. 14 people total in Sarah's living room that always smelled like those plug-in air fresheners, fake cinnamon, chemical vanilla. I did not want to go. Not because I did not love them, but because I knew exactly how it would unfold. I would sit in the armchair they had designated as Grandpa's chair. People would speak to me in slightly louder voices than necessary, as if I had gone deaf, as if age had made me simple. They would ask me the same questions they asked last year. How am I feeling? Am I eating enough? Am I getting out? And then, after the appropriate 15 minutes of including the old man, they would return to their own conversations, their own lives, and I would sit there like a piece of furniture with a pulse, present but not participating, needed as a symbol but not as a person. I called Sarah 3 days before Christmas. I am not coming, I said. Silence. Then, what do you mean you are not coming? Dad, it is Christmas. I know what day it is. Sarah, I am not coming. Is this about Mom? I know the first Christmas without her is hard, but that is exactly why you need to be with family. This is not about your mother, I said, and my voice came out harder than I intended. This is about me. I do not want to come. I want to be alone. That is not a cry for help. That is not depression. That is my choice. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I do not understand you anymore, she finally said, and her voice cracked. You have changed. You are not the father I knew. You are right, I told her. I am not. We did not speak for 2 months after that. And in those 2 months, young one, I lived more honestly than I had in years. I want you to understand something. I was not sitting in my house in the dark, staring at walls, waiting to die. That is the image they conjure, is it not? The isolated elder, depressed, neglected, fading away. That is the nightmare they use to justify their intervention. But I was reading, I was thinking. I was watching the winter light change across my backyard. I was remembering Catherine, really remembering her, not the sanitized, grief-safe version, but the whole complicated woman I loved. I was listening to music from the 50s, the 60s, when my life was still mostly ahead of me and everything seemed possible. I was writing letters to my grandchildren that I will probably never send, but the writing mattered. I was, for the first time in decades, not performing for anyone, not managing anyone's emotions, not conforming to anyone's expectations of what Harold Whitman should be. And I was not lonely. Lonely is being surrounded by people who do not see you. Lonely is talking and not being heard. Lonely is sitting in a room full of family and feeling like a ghost. What I felt in my quiet house in my own company was the opposite of lonely. I felt found. Was I wrong to hurt my daughter? Was I selfish to choose my own peace over her need for a picture? Perfect family Christmas, maybe. But I had to ask myself, whose life am I living? At 79 years old, with my knees aching every morning and my heart doing that little flutter thing that reminds me this machine is wearing out, whose approval am I still seeking? Whose expectations am I still trying to meet? If you want to navigate these final years without bitterness, without regret, without that hollow ache of a life spent in service to other people's comfort, there are brutal truths you must carve into your heart. First truth, your energy is not what it was, and that is not a failure. It is biology. The same way your hair went gray, the same way your vision blurred, your capacity for noise, for crowds, for constant stimulation, it has shifted. Your nervous system, after 8 decades of input, craves quiet the way a desert craves rain. This is not antisocial. This is self-preservation. Every time you force yourself into environments that overwhelm you, you are not being healthy, you are burning reserves you can no longer afford to waste. I watch young people sometimes on the rare occasions I do go out. They are like hummingbirds, constant motion, noise to noise, screen to conversation to music to activity, and they have the battery for it. Their systems recharge quickly. But you and me, my friend, we are running on a battery that does not recharge the way it used to. Every social interaction, every obligation, every hour of performing normalcy, it costs. And the bill comes due in exhaustion, in shortened temper, in a feeling of being wrung out like an old dish rag. The Stoics understood this. Seneca wrote about the poverty of business, the wealth of a well-ordered inner life. He said, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which depends upon tomorrow and wastes today. You are wasting your todays trying to be who you were at 50. You are wasting your remaining hours managing other people's anxiety about your choices." Second truth. You have spent decades wearing masks. You are allowed to take them off now. When you were building a career, you smiled at bosses you did not respect. You made small talk at parties that bored you to tears. You networked. You performed interest. You played the game because that is what survival required. When you were raising children, you were mother, father, provider, protector, roles that demanded you be everything except fully yourself. But those masks, my dear, they were work clothes. And you have retired. The desire to be alone is often the desire to finally meet yourself without the costume. To think thoughts that are actually yours, not reactions to what others need to hear. To move through your day at your pace, not the rhythm others demand. To be bored if you want to be bored. To be quiet if you want to be quiet. To stop curating your existence for an audience that barely notices anyway. They call this withdrawal. I call it authenticity. Third truth, most socializing at this age is performance, not connection. And you can feel the difference. Do they ask you real questions? Do they want to know about the regrets that wake you at 3 in the morning? The memories that still make you laugh 40 years later? The opinions you have developed after 8 decades of watching the world? Or do they ask about your health, your diet, whether you are taking your medications, as if you have been reduced to a collection of medical metrics? Real connection is rare, young one. It always has been. But when you were younger, you had the energy to pan for gold in rivers of small talk. You could afford the bad conversations to get to the occasional good one. Now, every hour is precious. Every conversation is an investment, and you have earned the right to be selective. When someone adds to your life, when the exchange is mutual, when you come away feeling more alive rather than less, that is worth your time. But coffee with someone who talks at you for 90 minutes about their grandchildren's soccer games while asking nothing about your inner life, that is not connection. That is just noise with a witness. Fourth truth, proximity to death changes the value of time. And no one who is not close to death can understand this. You feel it, do not you? The way time has shifted. When you were 30, time felt infinite. Wasting a Sunday was no tragedy. There were thousands more Sundays ahead. But now every Sunday is numbered. You might have 100 left, you might have 50, you might have 12. This is not morbid. This is mathematics. And it changes everything. Suddenly, spending 3 hours at a gathering you do not want to attend is not just uncomfortable, it is a genuine loss. 3 hours you will never get back. 3 hours that could have been spent in ways that actually fed your soul instead of draining it. Young people think you are being dramatic when you decline invitations. They think you are depressed. They do not understand that you are simply doing the math differently now. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor and philosopher, he understood this. He wrote, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly." You are living what is left. And living it properly means living it honestly, not according to some social script written for people who still think they are immortal. Fifth truth, solitude is not emptiness. It is the space where you finally process a lifetime of experience. You have lived through wars, recessions, loves, losses, betrayals, triumphs. You have accumulated 8 decades of memories, lessons, relationships, mistakes. When exactly were you supposed to make sense of all that? Between the morning commute and the evening dinner? Between raising children and caring for aging parents? The desire to be alone is often the psyche's demand for integration time. Your brain, your heart, your soul, they need quiet to sort through the chaos of a life fully lived. This is not avoidance. This is essential work. The work of becoming whole before you go. I sit in my chair sometimes and memories wash over me like waves. Catherine and I dancing in our first apartment, the floor so creaky the neighbors below would bang on the ceiling. My son's face, I had a son, Daniel, he died in a car accident in 1987. He was 23. His face when he graduated college. The smell of my father's pipe tobacco. The exact shade of green the trees turned in spring of 1964. This is not nostalgia. This is accounting. Taking stock. Understanding the shape of the life I have lived before it ends. You cannot do that work in a crowd. You cannot do it on demand. You need silence. You need solitude. You need time unstructured and uninterrupted. 6. Truth, saying no is not cruelty. It is clarity. You have been trained, especially if you are a woman, but honestly regardless of gender, to prioritize other people's comfort over your own truth. To say yes when you mean no. To sacrifice your own needs to keep the peace, to be liked, to be considered kind. But here is what I learned too late, young one. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you abandon yourself. You teach the people who love you that your stated preferences are negotiable. You train them to expect your compliance. And then, when you finally work up the courage to speak your truth, they call it a change, a problem, a symptom of something wrong. When I told Sarah I was not coming to Christmas, I was not rejecting her. I was finally, after 79 years, refusing to reject myself. Do you see the difference? For decades, every time I forced myself into social situations that depleted me, I was choosing their comfort over my well-being. I was saying, Your need for my presence matters more than my need for peace. That is not love. That is self-betrayal dressed up as family obligation. Seventh truth, you have earned the right to live for no one but yourself. This is not selfishness. This is completion. You raised your children, you worked your jobs. You paid your dues to the community, the society, the family system. You showed up for decades. You sacrificed and compromised and bent yourself into shapes that fit other people's needs. You are in the final chapter now, and this chapter belongs to you. Not to your children's image of who you should be. Not to your doctor's metrics of healthy aging. Not to society's expectations of graceful, uncomplaining elderdom to you. If you want peace in these remaining years, you must build what I call a fortress of solitude, not a prison. Not an isolation chamber. A fortress. A sacred space that is yours alone, that you retreat to without apology, that you defend without guilt. Every time you honor your need for quiet, you strengthen the fortress walls. Every time you decline an obligation that would deplete you, you add another stone. Every time you choose your own company over hollow socializing, you deepen the foundation. Because listen to me, young one, the storms are coming. They always come at this age. Health crises, losses, the slow erosion of independence. And when those storms hit, your children will be busy. Your friends will be dealing with their own aging. Your doctors will have 17 other patients that day. You must have a fortress of self to retreat to. A core of solitude that is so strong, so practiced, so unapologetic that it can hold you when everything else fails. This is not about becoming a hermit. I am not telling you to cut off everyone who loves you. Catherine's sister Dorothy, she still calls me every Sunday. We talk for 20 minutes, sometimes 30. Real conversation. I look forward to it. My grandson Marcus, Sarah's oldest, he stops by once a month and we sit on the porch and he asks me about the war, about Catherine, about my regrets. Those connections feed me. But the difference is, they are chosen, they are mutual, they are authentic. They are not obligations I fulfill to prevent someone else's discomfort. I learned this too late, but you still have time. Every time you feel guilty for wanting to be alone, remind yourself this is biology, not pathology. Every time someone suggests you are isolating, ask yourself, am I isolating from connection, or am I protecting myself from performance? Every time you are pressured to be more social, more active, more engaged, ask, whose life am I living? Trust your own mind, my friend. Trust your own needs. You have 8 decades of evidence about what depletes you and what restores you. You are the world's leading expert on your own inner life. Not the doctor with the checklist. Not the daughter with the anxiety. Not the culture with its fear of quiet you. Look at me. Look at these hands with their trembling and their spots. Look at this face, creased with every year, every loss, every hard-won lesson. I am at the end of the road. The curtain is coming down. I have got a few years left if I am lucky, maybe only months. I do not know, and neither does anyone else. And I will tell you what I do not regret: the quiet mornings, the declined invitations, the Christmas I spent alone, reading by the fireplace, drinking the good whiskey, crying when I needed to cry and laughing when I remembered something funny, with no one watching, no one managing, no one afraid of my grief. When I say that wanting to be alone is normal, I am now telling you to cut off everyone who loves you and sit in bitter isolation. It is the exact opposite. When you stop forcing yourself into social situations that hollow you out, you finally have the energy for the connections that actually matter. When you stop performing wellness for an anxious audience, you can finally be honest about what you need. When you stop apologizing for your solitude, you discover that it is not loneliness at all, it is freedom. I love my daughter Sarah. I forgave her years ago for not understanding. How could she understand? She is 51 years old. She still thinks she has infinite time. She still thinks business equals value, that a full calendar means a full life. She was just a scared woman trying to keep her father safe in the only way the culture taught her how. But I wish, God, I wish I had claimed this peace decades earlier. I wish I had not wasted years of precious solitude on guilt. I wish I had understood at 65 what I finally learned at 79, that my desire for quiet was not a symptom of something broken. It was evidence of something finally healed. You have one life, one brief, unrepeatable, etchingly finite life. And if you are past 65, you are in the final act. The pages are running out, and on every single one of those remaining pages, you get to choose: will you live according to their script or your truth? Will you spend your remaining energy on performances that exhaust you, or on the quiet, authentic existence you have earned? Will you die having pleased everyone around you but betrayed yourself? Or will you die having finally met yourself in the silence and discovered you were good company all along? If these words resonated with the quiet part of your soul, the part that has been whispering that you are not broken for wanting peace, I would be honored if you subscribe to this channel. Not because I care about numbers, I am 82 years old, for God's sake, I will be lucky to see next winter. But because in this noisy world that pathologizes silence, you need a place to be reminded that your solitude is sacred, that your quiet is not a problem, that your desire to be alone is not a warning sign, it is a wisdom sign. There are not many of us left who will tell you the truth. Most people my age either gave in to the pressure or they are too afraid to speak up. But I have got nothing to lose anymore except time, and I will not waste what is left pretending. Take care of your solitude, young one. Protect it like the treasure it is. Because time is shorter than you think, and the only company you are guaranteed at the end is your own. Make sure it is company worth keeping.